somehow it seems that Satan is more active today than maybe even sometimes in the past. But certainly he's active through communism, through the Black Lives Matter or burning, looting, murdering, as other people describe it. She, her, hers, he, him, his.
I've been a fan of Tucker for years on various cable news shows, but it's such a thrill that he's on at 8 o'clock every night on the Fox News channel.
You're listening to the Fakertarians podcast. Fuck Tucker Carlson. Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Fakertarians podcast. I'm your host, John Hudak, along with Jeremy Kantorowicz, Alec, and our tech guy. So we got episode 39 for you here today. It's the first episode we've done in a while. It's nice to be back. So it's another nice. Lew Rockwell Christmas special. We did one of these a year ago where we went over some articles and quotes from Lew Rockwell. There's been some stuff over the past week or so. There's been some other things over the year that we haven't covered. So we're going to get to a lot today. Okay, so before we start, how's everybody doing today, co-hosts?
I'm just really glad that Lew was considerate enough to share neo-Nazi website in December. That way, because he was really just hoping that you guys would do another Christmas special.
Yeah, he was waiting.
Yeah.
Exactly.
He was just that considerate to you guys. So I'm really thankful for that in this holiday spirit.
I mean, yeah, he's like the gift that keeps on giving. Okay, so we'll jump into some stuff. So, in case anyone's been living like under a rock for the past week or so, Lew Rockwell has this thing on his website. I think it's usually on like the right hand side of the site. I think it's called like political theater or something like that. Where what he'll do is he will add a title to something and then link to a site, like link to articles he likes or things like that.
Yeah.
So sometimes there'll be YouTube videos. Sometimes there will be just a little blurb. Sometimes there will be like an actual full article and a link. So on December 2nd, he linked to he linked to an article, and the title he put for the post was "What the U.S. government has done to normal people," and then it has his byline. It says December 2nd, 2021, and then it says click here, and it has a hyperlink, and the hyperlink is to a neo-Nazi website called the Daily Stormer. Okay, so we have a saved archive version of that. It's a long story, but it was taken down after maybe like 24 hours after the backlash started, but no one really noticed it for like 5 days because apparently the people who normally read LewRockwell.com are totally fine with Nazi stuff. But so let me pull this article up. So sadly, I'm on the dailystormer.com right now, but luckily it's an archive link, so I'm not giving them any traffic. So the article starts with a few things about China. It starts with complaining about how the Jews control America. And then, just like the title of Lew's post, it says, here's a list of things that the U.S. government has done to normal people. So it starts pretty innocently. Stripped us of all of our constitutional rights. Okay, sure. You go down a few. Flooded us with primitive third world savages. That's getting into Nazi territory, to say the least. Declared white people, and then it says in parentheses, Native American population, which doesn't make any sense because white people aren't Native Americans, but okay, to be terrorists. Another one is promoted black riots and violence.
Promoted, huh?
Yeah, you didn't catch that Biden ad where he's like, yeah, let's have some violence. I don't know what they're talking about. Then there's another one, forced racial integration. So here's where it gets to. I mean, that's a dumb enough thing to complain about in itself. But
John, if you want to share the tab, you can bring it into the.
I have it on a different browser. I don't know if that's. Yeah, you know what? I can see if I can pull it up. Give me 1 second.
Yeah, because integration is the thing that's being forced, not segregation, right?
Yeah,
Right.
definitely.
Okay, let me pull it up in a Chrome tab. Hold for some technical difficulties for a second. I have it on. I was using a different browser. Okay. Is that working?
Yes.
There
All
it
right,
is.
so
Perfect.
then we get to here's the other things that the Daily Stormer was complaining about that Lew Rockwell thought was a good article to share to his fan base. I mean, it makes sense when you look at some of his fan base, but legalized gay anal sex. That's another thing the U.S. government has done to normal people, apparently. The best part of that is that
Taste.
apparently he's like, he has no problem with straight anal sex. It's just the gay stuff that he's
Just the
complaining
gay,
about.
just
the gay
just
stuff.
the gay stuff. Yep.
He probably has a problem doing it in his old age, but other than that,
Well, the actual I should get to this too, because there's just so much behind this, but the actual author of this piece is like the head guy at the Daily Stormer. His name is Andrew Anglin, and we'll get into him a little bit later. He is very open neo-Nazi. He's talked about how he hates women and they deserve to be tortured and raped. Real nice guy. But
It sounds like a well-rounded individual.
oh, exactly. Maybe he'll be Dave Smith next podcast guest.
Oh yeah.
But
Fellow traveler.
travelers. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, then Anglin complains about how the U.S. government legalized interracial marriage, which
Okay. Based.
exactly based. Gave women the right to vote. Gave homosexuals direct access to children. What does that even mean?
I guess adoption.
I'm thinking adoption probably.
It's like they can come, like gay people can come up and say hi to kids, and like is that supposed to be illegal or something?
well, every gay person is a pedophile to some people, so
Yeah.
That's true.
That's probably where he's going at it from. The next one is legalized pornography. I mean, that's good for Andrew Anglin because that's probably all he can get. But
Hasn't it always been legal? Like, hasn't this always been legalized? Like,
that's a good question.
I don't think there's ever been a law against.
Well, there's been obscenity
pornography.
laws, but I don't know. I'd have to look into the history of.
Does
how
mean about-
those
you
were
mean porn?
enforced. Yeah.
Well, there were laws about the transfer of porn, like the Comstock laws. You couldn't do it through the mail and stuff, but I don't really know if there's ever bans on owning any pornographic material.
Yeah, I mean there was like Playboy like decades ago.
Tardell.
Another one here. Allow Jewish bankers total dominance of the U.S. economy. What we got here? I'm scrolling. Oh, let me scroll down on the Chrome tab so people can actually see it, even though it's really small. Apparently, Mr. Anglin believes that the U.S. government promoted gay sex to children, which
injected children with tranny hormones.
Tranny hormones.
the special hormones,
What about the the kids who actually have like a hormone deficiency? Are they given the non-tranny hormones?
So is he alleging that they like took hormones from like transgender people and like injected them into kids as like
I
some
don't
science
know.
project or something?
Right into the veins. Quick, I need my fix of tranny hormones.
We've come a long way from paper mache volcanoes.
He complains that they taught anal sex in schools.
When did they do that with the whole abstinence? Like, when did they do that?
I don't remember that.
I missed that class because I sure
definitely
Yeah, like I
figured
had
everything out
I had
myself.
sex education classes at like the public schools I went to, but there was definitely no like here's how to do gay anal sex. But again, he's not complaining about that they're being taught to do straight anal sex. It's just the gay one.
Just the gay anal sex, yeah.
We should shout Lew Rockwell to hear his reaction. That comment.
Banned prayer from schools. That never happened. Prayer isn't banned from
I'm
schools.
pretty sure you're allowed to pray in schools.
I can guarantee you, living in the place I live, it's not banned.
Yeah, the only thing nominally banned is school officials leading it or promoting it, but that's just a nominal ban.
Yeah.
Darnell, please.
Here we go. Legalized abortion. Promoted women to positions of power over men. Uh-oh. Can't have a woman in a position of power, obviously.
Yeah, I remember the first woman president.
I think England's struggling to come to terms with his submissive sexual urges.
Wendy Rogers is definitely
Okay.
yeah, women tied
purposely
Spy.
driven down the white birth rate.
Which
Spied
on the
on
side of the-
everyone's legitimate.
Based.
Which on the side of the site actually there's a countdown to when white people are no longer the majority in America.
This is great. So this article, like, basically after that list, it talks about how, like, China's not a big issue or something like that, which, like, okay. But it says here, gay marriage in Taiwan does not affect you. But he apparently thinks that, like, gay marriage and interracial marriage in the U.S. does affect you. So I don't know where he's going with that.
Well, he doesn't care about how other races and cultures operate because they're inferior to him.
This is, I imagine this is like his depiction of himself crying at the end.
Self-portrait. Yeah.
Exactly. So let's talk about, I'm gonna get rid of the article and we'll talk. Actually, let me share just so everyone can see and visualize this in case they haven't seen it. There we go. This is Lew's link right here that I was talking about before. It says what the U.S. government has done to normal people, which is what that list was about. Normal people, like Lew Rockwell, apparently, who share links to the Daily Stormer. And there's the link right there to the Daily Stormer, which is an open neo-Nazi website. And that's apparently okay in certain libertarian circles now. But it's actually been interesting because usually when there's a controversy like this, you get a lot of people like Dave Smith and all of them kind of like pushing back, like, oh, Lew Rockwell's great. These are just the loser brigades. Huh? They haven't done anything good with their lives. But it's, except for like a few people, none of the big names, except for like a few smaller names that would probably just defend basically anything, there really hasn't been much pushback on this in terms of like people standing up for Lew. Which is like, come on, defend your guy here.
Kind of reminds me of the whole Tyler Bratton thing, because he was kind of quickly blacklisted from a lot of the right wing in the Libertarian Party, even like the social right wing, when he shared that Trump 2020 video of the whole swastikas in the background thing. I think it's just that there's only so much you can openly defend before the mask comes off, and it's calculus. Normally,
the thing is, they're not going to blacklist Lew. So this is going to be
they won't blacklist him
because the dude founded the Mises Institute. He's still the chairman of the Mises Institute. I think he was Ron Paul's chief of staff at some point. He's actually suspected by a lot of people of writing, or at least being the editor for the racist Ron Paul newsletters from the 90s, which would make sense given everything else I know about him. At the very least, I'm sure he's a big fan. Okay, what else do I have on this sheet here? So do we want to stay on the Nazi article for a little bit longer, or do we want to move on here? Because I got some other stuff to cover.
I mean, yeah, we could definitely move on, but I mean, it's just, there's no plausible deniability here. Like Lew has zero plausible deniability, and they love their plausible deniability, and nope.
Because it's the Daily Stormer. It's not even like it's not even some website that like hides it. And then you can't even say, and I mean, he knows who the Daily Stormer is, but let's pretend for a second that he doesn't know who the Daily Stormer is. Like, let's say he's just like, oh, I just saw this website and these kids are linking to it, or however Lew Rockwell talks. Once he actually clicked on the link, he very clearly, based on the title of his post, he very clearly read that list that's saying things like that they're complaining about the government banning interracial marriage or gay anal sex. Like, it's not like, and it wasn't just like one thing on that list that like maybe he glossed over. Like, that was a lot of it. So yeah, the plausible deniability is out the window. And I mean, we know what Lew is from everything he's written over the years. Like, but even for the most skeptical people, there's nothing there, which I think is why people like Dave and people like even Tho Bishop won't chime in. And usually Tho is like, yeah, let's like send the cops after the homeless people, which we'll get to in a bit. But yeah, no defense.
I will say, I saw someone ask who Lew Rockwell was, because apparently they weren't too familiar. And the Mises Caucus official Twitter tweeted a reply that was, Jeff Diaz fluff piece, thank you to Lew Rockwell for everything he's done for the libertarian movement.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
and I was like,
yeah, I don't know who Lew Rockwell is, and then it was this sappy...
I was like, if they didn't want to get into the issue, they could have just said, well, he's the founder of the Mises Institute, chairman, whatever. Like, they didn't have to like jump on the issue.
But even they
to,
won't say anything about it directly.
To share the fluff piece is a bit concerning, and that was not.
Oh yeah. But like even the Mises Caucus will not directly address this. Like
Right.
I know I've seen like a member here or there address it, but I mean like the upper level people, they will not say, they won't be like, oh, it's not, like even they won't be like, oh, it's not a big deal, because they're gonna look like idiots if they do that. Or like maybe he shared it by accident, because if you say he shared it by accident, again, you're gonna look like an idiot. You don't just accidentally share a neo-Nazi link. It's not a pocket dial, like a post I made earlier this week.
Whoops, wrong URL.
Yeah. No, but there has been no like prominent defense for it other than that, which was half-heartedly done.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll get to some. We can touch on this again later, but there have been some other articles over the past year since we did our last Lew Rockwell Christmas special that I kind of wanted to touch on. So let me pull some up. So, like I said, on his website, he does this thing where he shares like links to articles, and he'll write a title on it. And there's this one article I'm pulling up right now where it's the title he wrote, and also the title of the article is "Time to Hit America's Time-Tested Immigration Pause Button." This was from July 22nd, 2021 that he shared this. And the subheading of the actual article said, "It's time for America to hit the pause button and put an immigration moratorium in place to promote a strong republic with America first policies." So he's calling for, or at least he likes the idea of, because they'll say he's not calling for it, but it's very clear he's actually calling for it if he's sharing this article. He's calling for a moratorium on all immigration, which, I don't know, doesn't seem very libertarian to me, but I don't know, maybe the Mises Caucus thinks it is.
It's just driver's licenses.
Yeah, it's just, oh yeah, we'll talk about that in a bit, Dave.
I'm just refer back to Gary Johnson's taco truck on every corner. I like Hispanic food too much to support an immigration moratorium, so
Same. Please read this out loud. This is from Tarnell. "The Mises Institute is a virus that should be excised from the earth with fire and blood, and the field on which it stood sown with salt that no Gary Norths can ever grow there again." Yeah, that's reasonable. We should add that to the LP platform.
Yes, we should.
Did you see Tarnell's comment on miscegenation earlier?
I think I did.
Yeah, it was miscegenation today, miscegenation tomorrow, miscegenation.
Okay, let me pull up this next article. So, I'm sure everyone by now knows the Derek Chauvin case, the George Floyd murder. So the day after that case happened, or the day after the verdict in that case happened, where Chauvin was found guilty of a multitude of things, including murder, Lew Rockwell's website didn't have anything about it. There was no like for a libertarian website, you'd expect okay, maybe some cop got convicted of murdering a guy. Maybe we could be like, okay, this is a good step in the right direction. You would think
pretty
a libertarian
more or less
website.
more or less the largest news story of the day, week, month.
So instead of that, he just, and I'm sure this was totally coincidental, it wasn't. He shared an article, and let me bring up a screenshot of it because we posted about it from our page. Give me 1 second. Is that the right one? Yeah. Okay, so this is a screenshot from the article I'm talking about. He was dropping the 1350 dog whistle about black crime statistics that all the racists like to drop. I'm not even going to go into detail about that because it's not worth my time right now. But here's the paragraph here. A final thought. And this wasn't Lew, to be clear, but this was published directly on his website. This was not a link, and I would imagine that, or I would contend that someone who publishes an article on their website is responsible for the content of that website, or the content of that article. I think that's pretty fair. So here's what it says. A final thought. BLM protesters have sported placards that read, "No justice, no peace." Well, what if it were in my power to guarantee that justice? What if I could wave some kind of magic wand that right now would have the desired effect of ensuring that any future police shootings would be completely justified, and that any future deaths in custody would be the result of something other than malice, neglect, or carelessness? Would our country see any let up in black criminality and become more peaceful as a result? Absolutely not. Murder offenders from a little group making up only 13% of the population would go right on committing half the country's murders, murdering white people at more than 8 times the expected rate, and killing cops at nearly triple the expected rate. So this racist garbage is what Lew is concerned with the day... Oh, I have chats popping up. This racist garbage is what Lew is concerned with the day after a cop was finally found guilty of murdering someone. I just want to let that sink in for a second.
He also shared a 1350 article yesterday.
He did also share a 1350 article yesterday.
But it was trying to justify police shootings of black people.
No, I'm pretty sure it was from the same guy, actually.
Let me check. What was his name on the other one? Do you remember?
I think it was like George something. George
Hollenbeck. Yeah, George Hollenbeck.
Yeah. Do you have that pulled up?
Yeah, do you want the link?
Yeah, give that to me now, just so I can talk about that since we're on that topic.
I remember it was like you just got blasted for sharing a neo-Nazi article, and a couple days after you share a 1350 article. That's really really intelligent of Lew.
He's a smart guy. What can I say?
I threw it in the StreamYard chat.
Okay, give me 1 second.
That'd be the first thing I would do, if I got blasted for
So here's what he said. I'll just read a little bit of this off. The whole article is basically like saying that black people are dangerous. Like he doesn't say that exactly, but that's what he's trying to say just by like listing a bunch of things. So he says, where was it? The figures for 2020 totaled 1,021 shootings. Of those, 241 victims were black, and of those, this is about police shootings, and of those, a grand total of 18 were unarmed, that category being the one where we would most likely expect to find unjustified shootings. However, even unarmed people can be dangerous enough to be justifiably shot. Out of those 18 instances, only 4 were unquestionably bad shoots that resulted in the officer involved being charged. And then the next paragraph starts. Having discussed black people killed by police, it may be instructive to look at police killed by black people. So again, he's trying to put forth this narrative that black people are dangerous and that police are justified in shooting them. It was funny because someone was coming at us on Twitter the other day being like, I don't think he's trying to justify it there. And I'm like, he's literally using the word justifiable. Like, I don't know how much more obvious you could get than that.
Yeah, but what does that mean exactly?
Well, actually, speaking of police shootings, the next article I have from LewRockwell.com was one he republished on his site back in May. And the title is called The 5 Myths of Systemic Racism in Policing. Here is myth number 3. Police officers employ unjustified force. And it says under it, commentators tend to paint police officers as aggressive. However, the truth is that they often exercise restraint even while enduring abuse. So again, he's trying to debunk the idea... Oh, we lost Alec. But he's trying to debunk the idea that like police brutality is a thing, which is funny because if you saw our previous Lew Rockwell special, Lew wrote an op-ed in the LA Times in, I believe, 1991. It was around the Rodney King riots where he was basically, not even basically, I mean, he was advocating for police brutality. I think he ended it with some thing about, as a libertarian, I'm starting to think we should be banning video cameras or something. Like, it was supposed to be like a sarcastic little quip. But what he was saying was that because cops were being filmed, they weren't able to beat the shit out of suspected criminals anymore, and that was making crime rise.
Yep.
So it was absolutely advocating for police brutality, which we'll get to more with Dave Smith in a little bit. So just you wait. Let me pull up Jeremy, do you want to say something?
Oh, no, nope, I'm good. Let's see. Was this written in the Ron Paul newsletter? No, it was written in the LA Times.
Yeah, it was published as an op-ed in the Los Angeles Times in, I believe it was 1991. We have I think the actual link to it is taken down by now, but we have an archive link, at least on our Facebook, if not on our Twitter too. So I can provide that. And actually, if you look, I wrote an article a few months ago, maybe a little bit longer.
Actually, if you just type on Lew Rockwell, LA Times, it comes right up. LA Times still has it published.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, Safe Streets versus Urban Terror.
Yep, that's what it's called. Okay, so let me pull up the next dumb thing that was published on Lew Rockwell's website. This is all over the past year. This was March 20th, 2021. I'm not even going to read any of the article because it's just straight up paleo garbage. But it was at the top of his weekend edition of his website. And the title by someone named Vasco Kohlmeyer is Why Transgenderism is Immoral, which I'm sure is a very big, pressing libertarian issue.
And I'm sure he's going to go really in depth on, how he researched this conclusion, right?
Yeah, and just like how Dave Smith always likes to chastise people for focusing on like things he views as minor, like immigration for some reason, I'm sure Dave will be getting to Lew very soon about this and being like, you shouldn't focus on this, but I don't know. He'll get there. So the next article. So this one was actually one that was from June 2020, but I missed it. It's entitled, Do White People Have a Future? It was published straight on his website. It's by Paul Craig Roberts. And I think I only need to read like, maybe the second paragraph to kind of get across what kind of paleo garbage, white nationalist pandering shit this is. So here's that paragraph. It's just 2 sentences. White liberals, white leftists, and the Democratic Party are prime enemies of white Americans. They intend white genocide, thinking like the social justice characters in the camp of the saints that they will be spared. Much of white corporate America is also an enemy of white people. Alone among the American media, Tucker Carlson on Fox News reports on what is happening to us. So I don't think I need to go any further. I mean, I think like even
I really need the
What's
confused Tucker Carlson look that he gives whenever a guest is speaking, where he just stares at the camera and just like gives that face. We need that gif for that.
I think even being like the most charitable, like it's just straight up pandering to white nationalists there. If Lew isn't one himself, which I mean, he very well might be at this point.
I mean, my dogs are screaming.
Now, John, you can't defame somebody by offering your opinion that they are white nationalist.
Lew is welcome to sue me. I will, if Lew sends me a message saying that he's going to sue me for saying that he's been publishing Nazi links or pandering to white nationalists, I will provide him my address to serve that lawsuit. That's a promise.
Please.
Okay, then we got another one. I'm not even going to read the article because it's just garbage. I mean, I read it when I originally posted this on the Fakertarians Twitter, but this is another one of his political theater links where he posted on the right side of his website. November 14th, 2021. And Josh Smith is going to love this one. So Pfizer's clinical trial data strongly indicates their COVID-19 jab causes the recipient to develop AIDS.
Oh, yeah, that article.
Calm down, Josh Smith. Calm down.
I'm sorry, but I don't think that's science. I'm just going to say.
I wouldn't even call that pseudoscience. That's just like, it's something.
And it's weird because like Lew has had a history of AIDS denialism.
They post AIDS denialism stuff on the website all the time, saying like HIV doesn't cause AIDS, and like I don't even remember what else. Something about like AIDS being fake. But now that there's a COVID vaccine, like now AIDS is real again.
Huzzah!
I'm sure Josh Smith is just waiting for the full dump still. We'll know about. For anyone who doesn't know that, it was maybe a year ago or a little longer. Josh Smith was made a Facebook post saying that it looks like COVID-19 was started by like splicing it with AIDS or something, or no, splicing it with HIV. And then he said that he was waiting for the full dumps, and he fell for a 4chan troll, is what that was.
I
like
mean,
someone was posting on 4chan about that, and he's
It's
like, "Oh yeah,
tough,
this
yeah.
seems like a reputable source."
he'd fall
I'm
for
surprised he
anything.
still doesn't call it GERD.
What? Oh, great.
Oh, when HIV first was discovered, when they really didn't know what was going on, they called it GERD, gay-related immunodeficiency.
Oh my god. Lou probably does call. I bet if I search that on LewRockwell.com, there's at least a 50% chance that something is going to show up. Like I should dig through his articles on AIDS later, because there's definitely going to be something homophobic in there.
Oh,
yeah,
definitely.
totally.
Like, for sure.
So, do we have anything else we want to say about Lew Rockwell for a second? Because I know this is the Lew Rockwell Christmas special, but I had a few other things I'd like to get to today that are a little bit less. Well, they're kind of related to Lew in a way, in that with Dave, he likes to promote police brutality, which I'm sure Lew is a big fan of. But I did want to move on to some other stuff too.
So, yeah, I suppose we could move on. I mean, yeah, we've got our other show which outlines all of his other fun Mighty Ducks hating stuff, and
Okay, so let me pull this up. So again, in case anyone has either been living under a rock or just doesn't go on Twitter, which are pretty similar, there's been a controversy going around about Dave Smith and also Bo Bishop from the Mises Institute, who basically started it by... So they were quoting a Rothbard piece from the 90s where Rothbard talks about unleashing the cops and allowing them to administer instant punishment. And they always like to say, like, oh, but it says subject, of course, to when they are in error. And they think that somehow that makes it any better because, cops are going to be held accountable. And, we want cops just beating the shit out of suspected criminals anyway. But okay. So there's been some controversy going around about that. It started with, I think Tho said something about Tho Bishop, a Mises Institute. I think he's the assistant editor. He said something about like clearing the streets of bums and vagrants, and who cares where they go. It was like a Rothbard paraphrase.
yeah.
So that kind of brought back up this whole Rothbard article. And then I have it pulled up here, November 27th of this year. Dave quote tweeted someone who was talking about Rothbard's thing about beating up criminals. And I'll read it to you guys just in case you're not familiar with it. So this is from his right-wing populism essay. It says, "Take back the streets, crush criminals." And by this I mean, of course, not white-collar criminals or inside traders, but violent street criminals, robbers, muggers, rapists, murderers. Cops must be unleashed and allowed to administer instant punishment, subject, of course, to liability when they are in error. So Dave quote tweeted that. He's talked about that before, and he talked about like how that's like a good libertarian solution while the state exists. He had a whole article about Rothbard's paleo period. But Dave quote tweeted at this time and said, "I've never understood what was at all controversial about this one. He makes it clear that he's talking about violent criminals, and he insists that the cops be held liable when in error. What's unlibertarian about that?" So I've written a full-on article about this. I'm not just gonna go through the whole thing. I think it's up on the Fakertarians website. It's called like Leash the Police or something like that.
Yep.
But just the idea that it's libertarian to have cops being like judge, jury, and executioner just running around the streets, just beating the shit out of people, even if they somehow are held liable when in error, whatever that even means. Like maybe if the person's found not guilty, or I don't even know what. But just the idea that you want agents of the state out there just having the ability to beat the shit out of people is like so far from any legitimate libertarian thought. I was going to say any libertarian thought, but someone's going to say like Rothbard's paleo stuff is libertarian thought. So any legitimately libertarian thought, that it's just it's just entirely out of the stratosphere. And for some reason, Dave doesn't get that, because it was interesting during the BLM protests how Dave kind of downplayed the idea that there was, or he downplayed the protests in general. He was basically saying, like, he said at one point that because there was some violence in the streets, he said this is worse than the state, which is like really, some people, like, obviously people shouldn't be like burning people's property or something, but really some people, like, breaking windows is worse than the drug war, or worse than like murdering people in Yemen. Like, come on, Dave. Like, we know you're trying to pander to your alt-right friends, but let's be realistic a little bit here.
Right. Well, and even when you look at it, I think it was like $1 to $2 billion in damage, which is a lot, and that is terrible and should never have happened. But I mean, the police more or less enabled it. They went and attacked people that weren't doing anything but protesting. I mean, I was there. I experienced it myself, and then they would just let people, attack property and just go after people that really weren't doing anything wrong.
And there's people taking advantage of that too. It's not all just like protesters. There's people who just want to go out and like break shit.
Right.
And they're taking advantage of the fact that there's a bunch of people out in the streets, and they're like, oh, okay, let's do this. And there is like a mentality involved with large groups of people sometimes. Like, I don't know if anyone's been to a gathering in the streets, let's say after a college team or like a pro sports team wins a championship. Like, there's
they do that stuff too.
The basketball team at where I went to undergrad won the national championship while I was in school. And I saw people put lampposts through buildings, all kinds of stuff. Like, there was, and that was just one night. Like, this was a mass movement, like a mass mobilization, like we hadn't seen in years. And the fact that someone is nitpicking about that, instead of looking to the fact that there were like people taking to the streets to chant about defunding the police and chant about ending qualified immunity, like, which one should we really be focusing on here?
Right.
Yeah, but I mean, I think, like, I don't like to mention this, but like, John Oliver made the point. He's like, if you worry more about how a decentralized movement acts in comparison to how a tax-funded militia basically acts, what's your point?
Exactly.
Yep.
So I want to move on to another thing that Dave has done. It was actually today. So I think there was some talk about government mandated vaccine passports, which, for the record, I will say that I am entirely against any government mandates regarding COVID. I'm fine with private businesses saying that you need to be vaccinated, or you need to wear a mask, or you need to have a negative test at a concert or something like that, but I don't think the government should be involved in that. But Dan Berman, who I believe he ran for the LP presidential nomination in 2020.
Yep.
He responded to Dave talking about being against like all that kind of COVID stuff, and said, do we oppose mandatory passports at the border? So instead of Dave being like, yeah, we don't want the government telling people who can travel, Dave says, I'll focus on the totalitarianism sweeping the world, and you focus on driver's licenses. Deal? Now beat it. But just the idea that Dave's trying to make this seem like a driver's licenses thing instead of like a mass state mobilization to stop people from crossing imaginary lines. It's just like, just be honest, Dave, at this point. You know what I mean? Like, he's totally just straight up minimizing it and trying to make it seem like it's something it's not.
And actually, I just pulled up here too. They went back and forth a little bit, and he ultimately has responded with, ideally, there would be no government passports. I don't think we're anywhere close to that time, and it's not a major concern to me. I don't care at all about changing the plank, which...
the immigration plank of the LP platform.
The immigration plank in the LP.
Dave, it's not a major concern to you because you just care about yourself, apparently, and you don't care about all the other people. Like, we shouldn't just care about the rights of the people in the territory marked as the United States. Like, it's not, especially if you're like a natural rights person, like natural rights theory does not say, oh, if you're in the United States, you have these rights. But if you're born on the other side of that line that the government drew in the desert, you don't have those rights. So fuck you.
And I mean,
You know
like,
what I mean?
and we all know that if a cop got, I don't know, had a personal vendetta against Dave and like sat outside of his driveway and asked him for his driver's license every time he pulled out of his house, he'd be fucking like complaining on Twitter non-fucking stop about it. But it's just driver's license, bro. Just driver's license.
It's just like a massive government agency, like hunting down people in the desert and stopping cars by the border and a massive police state. But it's just driver's licenses, bro.
Right.
Just driver's license.
Yeah,
And just the fact, it makes it even funnier, though, that he talks about how, like, and don't get me wrong, I'm against the idea of some kind of government-enforced COVID passport. Like, I don't think that the government should be able to, like, tell private businesses who they should let in their store.
Right.
But the fact that he's acts like COVID passports are like, well, I can say this because the Mises people compare it to this all the time. They act like COVID passports are the Holocaust, but actual passports are just like, oh, it's not a big deal. Like,
And like, don't forget about the immigration detention centers.
Oh yeah.
We have more of a
Throwing
correlation there than anything.
kids in cages, which is
Yeah.
funny because Dave actually went on Molyneux's show a few years ago for an episode called Immigration Derangement Syndrome, where Molyneux was basically just downplaying the idea that there's like that. I mean, they said like, oh, it's not great that they're in cages. There was some of that, but like they were downplaying the idea of like open borders and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm sick of him at this point.
Eggs.
We're gonna have to deal with him for at least a couple years.
Oh, definitely.
Okay, so moving on from Dave, there is one other topic I wanted to cover today. So if anyone didn't see, and I will admit that I did not watch this debate, Angela McArdle was the Mises Caucus candidate for chair of the Libertarian Party for 2022. Was recently in a debate in, I believe it was New York City at the Soho Forum.
Yep.
I don't remember exactly what the debate was about. I believe it was about, can vaccine mandates ever be justified or something like that. But I'm not criticizing her for her position here at all, because I would actually argue that government vaccine mandates can never be justified. But
yeah,
so
apparently she turned it into some like no mandates, like your company can't mandate it, or the concert venue. So she ended up going way further than like government mandates.
I heard that she also was like talking about the efficiency of the vaccine, which had nothing to do with the actual
right,
because it wasn't just about the COVID vaccine; it was about vaccines in general.
Vaccine in general,
But even that content is not really related to what I want to talk about here. So I don't know if anyone knows what an Oxford-style debate is. So basically, and this is what they do at the Soho Forum. It was people watching online and people there, because I believe there was a vaccine mandate. So basically, the Mises Caucus couldn't go, but they were allowed to watch it online. And before the debate starts, you vote on your position. You say whether you agree with like the person taking the negative or taking the affirmative, or you vote that you're undecided. And the way they decide who wins is they see how big of a change in the percentage of people the undecided were. So if you like convinced more people of your side who were undecided previously, or you made them flip altogether, like it compares the two percentages basically. But you're best off if you're convincing people that were not on your side originally. So Angela, for the debate, and I'm pulling it up right now, so bear with me for a second. She made a post on her Substack saying, so I'll read the whole thing just for some context, so they can't go out of context, because I think they always do, even though the context doesn't change anything, but what do I know? But she said, if you haven't purchased a ticket yet, please do so. You can get an online ticket option at the sohoforum.org. This is an Oxford-style debate, so if you want to help me win, you need to log in on time and follow the instructions to vote before and after the debate begins. Marking yourself as undecided in the beginning is the best way to help me win. Oxford-style debates are measured by the number of people who are persuaded from the beginning of the debate to the end. So basically, she tried to rig the debate. And obviously, we can't quantify whether people actually listened to that. I would imagine they did, and I would imagine she was telling people this outside of her Substack too. Like basically anyone who was going to the debate. I wouldn't doubt that. But she won the debate maybe by it was a very small margin. It was like 2%, 3%, something like that. So she really like eked out a victory, and she's going around. And even before people realized this whole thing about how she basically tried to rig it, she's going around saying how she won, and Dave Smith is congratulating her and stuff like that. So today, Nick Sarwark shared a post saying that asking supporters to mark themselves as undecided is certainly one way to win an Oxford-style debate, not ethical, but apparently effective. And Angela said, no, this is common in Oxford debate. Everyone knows that. Then Nick said, can you share one of these common examples of an Oxford-style debaters asking supporters to falsify their initial vote as undecided if you want to help me win in order to influence the outcome? And Nick also asked if her opponent did the same common tactic. And then he wrote, thanks in advance. And Angela blocked him, which is a fun answer there. But it's just funny to me that she blocked Sarwark for questioning her, because maybe she would have responded better if Nick had been questioning the Holocaust instead.
Just asking questions.
If anyone isn't familiar with that, I'll give some background there. So I'm not just making a Mises Caucus Holocaust denial joke, because they pandered to some for sure. But at I believe it was the Alabama State Convention earlier this year, Angela was asked a question, and again, she's their chair candidate. She's running to be the chairman of the Libertarian Party. She has the endorsement. At least, I don't know if they've officially endorsed her yet, but it's very obvious that they're endorsing her. Like, they're working together on everything. And she was asked a question at that Alabama convention. So the question is this. I have the exact quote here. So in California, your caucus has invited Hotep Jesus to speak at their convention. He has expressed anti-Semitic views, anti-GSM views. He's not a libertarian. If elected to be chair of the national party, would you invite someone like that to the national convention? And just as an aside here for a second, like I'm not quoting anymore. We've covered Hotep Jesus a lot. He's basically a guy who likes to blame the Jews for everything, like very openly. At least he was very open about it for years. And then I think it was a Daily Beast article about him. And you can look it up. You can see a bunch of, it's not even all of his quotes because there's a million of them, but a bunch of his quotes blaming the Jews for basically everything. And like I said, we've covered this on Fakertarians before. There's been Holocaust denial posts. But recently, after that Daily Beast article where I think he lost some opportunity to speak somewhere. It might have been like a Turning Point USA event or something.
Yep,
like that.
it was. Yeah,
I think they kicked him out of that after it dropped. He's been referring to Jews as the redacted, which he thinks is clever for some reason, even though it's very obvious to everyone looking except for Josh Smith for some reason, because he's apparently an idiot. It's very obvious to everyone looking that he's talking about Jewish people again. Like, he'll say like, oh, she's not white, she's redacted-ish. Or he'll be talking about I know there was some, and he's still dropping this all the time. Like, I haven't checked in a while because this guy is irrelevant to me. But I checked like earlier this year, and he's dropping the word redacted all the time, like saying like he said like, oh, there's a lot of white money in the NBA, the National Basketball Association, but then he corrected himself. He's like, oh, actually redacted money. So he's talking about Jewish people. But back to how Angela responded to that question. So Angela said, I reject the premise of your question. I don't actually think that someone who's trying to be a truth seeker and understand what's going on and ask the question about whether or not Jews run Hollywood is an anti-Semite. I think it's a really divisive thing to throw out. And then she goes on about some other shit. I mean, I'll read the whole thing because, again, the out of context people are going to try to crucify
Context.
Context. Watch, this context is going to make it so much better. She's going to say,
Oh, yeah.
actually, Holocaust denial is terrible, and this is a terrible guy, and we shouldn't be promoting him. No, she's not going to say that. Would he be invited to speak at the national convention? I'm not planning the national convention. That'll be up to the convention committee, who they put on. And the convention committee, would it be run by the Mises Caucus? No, it would be run by the Libertarian Party. And I wouldn't be stacking committees full of people in my caucus or people who only believe what I believe, because that's not an effective way to run an organization. And that's why we've had so much drama over these past few years. Everyone needs to be represented, including Holocaust deniers. No, she didn't add that last part, but it's basically what she said. But like I said, maybe if Nick had been like, oh, I'm just trying to, he should have said he was a truth seeker. He's just trying to seek the truth on if she were in that debate. And actually, yeah, the Zach Britt is in the comments right now. Tech guy, if you can pull that up a little bit.
Yeah.
He's in the YouTube comments, just so everyone on Facebook can see it. And I believe Zach was actually the one who asked the question at the convention, which was great. Kudos to him for that. But he said, keep in mind, this response from Angela got thunderous applause on the convention floor in Alabama. Had to be a lot of Mises people there.
I mean,
this is what we're
Alabama.
dealing with in the Libertarian Party. We've got people who want to unleash the cops on homeless people or on suspected criminals. We've got people who think, and not just people, but presumptive 2024 presidential nominees who think that immigration is just or talking about passports is like, oh, you're just against driver's licenses. Like, who do we got here?
Hey, it's Ozzy. How's it going,
hey,
guys?
Ozzy.
It is Ozzy. I was worried it was the duck guy for a second.
I thought it was the duck guy.
This is another duck guy, apparently.
There's another duck guy? Oh, sorry for interrupting. Keep going.
No, you're good. I was getting towards the end of what I was saying anyway. So, have you been watching any of the episode?
I have not, unfortunately. I'm dealing with my kids.
Okay,
What I missed.
We've talked about Lew Rockwell. We went through the Nazi article, the Nazi article from a Nazi website, because I like to say both of those because it's clear it's a Nazi website and it's clear it's a Nazi article. We talked about some other things that were posted to Lew's website, like the thing about the moratorium on immigration and him posting black crime statistics after the Derek Chauvin verdict, him posting things
As one does, yes.
normal people stuff. Him posting articles about white genocide on his website and about how the COVID vaccine causes AIDS. Then we moved on to Dave Smith's whole unleash the cops on homeless people thing. Oh yeah, I think I don't know if I touched on this, but Dave was also talking about how like he was justifying that rhetoric because he's like, oh, there's homeless people in parks I go to, and my daughter might see that, and like, okay, Dave. But it's funny how he's freaking out about homeless people in public parks, but he doesn't think immigration is a big deal. So see where we're coming from there. And we talked about Dave's immigration stuff today too, which I don't know if you've seen yet, but Dave basically, someone asked him if he's against passports because he was talking about like COVID passports and things like that, and someone asked him if he's against passports in general, and he was like, I'll focus on the totalitarianism and you can focus on driver's licenses, which he was minimizing the issue of immigration to just driver's licenses. But okay, Dave. And then we moved on to Angela McArdle trying to rig the Soho Forum debate. And then we talked about how she blocked Sarwark for questioning her, and that maybe she would have responded better if Nick had been questioning the Holocaust instead. So that's where we're at right now. Any thoughts, Ozzy?
I would have responded better. We know that.
Oh, you're breaking up a little bit.
Then he was just asking questions. Come on, Dave. Dave talks about the state and how he's against the state, but there's a homeless guy in a park, and all of a sudden he wants to unleash the state on the homeless guys. It's just the homeless people. It's just mind-boggling how you can say these things with a straight face and just be, I'm more anti-state than you are. I do so much for the movement. Like,
I'm a real
arguing
anarchist.
for sicking the police.
The best part is how he always goes on
Pink
that
anarchy.
thing. The best part is how he goes on that thing about how he's like the most consistent motherfucker you know. That's his tagline. And he's like maybe consistently shitty, if that's what we're talking about. But if we're talking about consistently libertarian, like, no, you're really not, Dave.
No. And he pretends to hate the state because, I mean, what it seems like is he would prefer a worse state. is really it. I mean, he wants to unleash the cops. He doesn't care about anybody outside of the outside of the United States borders. The worst thing that has ever happened to him ever is, Applebee's not being dine-in for a little while. It's just, it's funny how, especially recently, how much of his ass has been shown, like, just through all this. And it's just, I mean, I'd say I can't believe it, but I can, because it's Dave.
But he's grifting for his podcast. That's all this is.
Right.
He's going on with other people. He's going on Rogan. I think he's been on with Tim Pool. I mean, this is all just a ploy to grow his stardom. Or I don't even want to call it stardom, but
right.
You know what I mean.
I mean, he doesn't. Yeah, he's a
His bank
big
account.
fish in a very small pond. He doesn't. He thinks he's not, but he really is. I mean, it's a tiny pond that we exist in.
Yeah.
But just the fact that this entire Mises caucus, well, maybe not the entire, because I'm sure there'll be a few stragglers that don't support him, but just the idea that we're putting this guy forth as the Libertarian Party nominee, like, if any of this is leaking out, how do you think that's going to go over? I don't think it's going to go well. And trust me, I can say personally that if Dave starts to gain any kind of traction, this stuff is leaking out. So we can keep that in mind. Because I'm not letting this guy act like he represents the Libertarian Party, and a party that's supposed to be against cops beating the shit out of people, or against cops attacking homeless people in parks, or against people not being able to cross borders. I'm not letting this guy act like he's our representative, even if he wins, even if the Mises Caucus stacks the convention, which they very well might. Or they might scare away a bunch of the good people, and then they end up winning. But I know the name Libertarian is already, like, probably beyond repair, but I'm not going to let this go down without a fight.
Yeah, we can at least enjoy ourselves in the process.
No, exactly.
It's just, yeah, it doesn't make any sense. It's also, again, the strategy doesn't make any sense. The people they're trying to recruit are people who are going to vote for Donald Trump if he's running. They're not shy about it. Now they've got people on state boards. I don't know if you guys talked about that. What's her name in New Hampshire? Who tweeted the Hitler
Carlin,
thing?
Gosh, yeah,
I'm
I
going to
forgot
butcher
about
her name.
Oh,
I'm
yes.
not meaning to. But like Carlin
Prager, the
Borisenko or something
PragerU,
like that?
yeah, the PragerU knitting
Yes.
girl.
I think she was removed from PragerU from being too crazy.
But she wasn't removed from the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire Communications
No,
Committee.
no,
that-
she's
No,
perfectly there.
it's a bonus there. They want it's radical
They want-
messaging. It gets
Yeah,
attention.
they want insane people.
She
were
went on
bragging about
for
that.
anyone who didn't see it, she went on this weird rant about like how everyone chooses their destiny before they're born, which like
Yeah,
whatever.
like,
But,
people choose to be
but
aborted
then
or
genocided.
genocided.
Then she went on to like all the people who died. She said all the people who died in the Holocaust chose to die in the Holocaust, and like Hitler was there to like show what true evil looked like, and Hitler's in heaven or something like that. Like it's okay if you have some like interesting spiritual beliefs or something, but maybe like if you're a representative of the Libertarian Party, don't go around saying that Hitler's in heaven.
Maybe.
If you're a representative
Maybe.
of the human race,
Actually,
maybe
you know
they'll do
what?
that.
Yeah, if you're a person, probably don't say Hitler went to heaven. That's like, we all agree that's not happening.
Like, even if you're really stoned and having this, like, whoa, man, what if everyone, like, chooses what they do before they're born? Like, maybe don't post
Don't
that
say
if
it
you're a
out loud.
representative of a libertarian party. And maybe don't key in on Hitler.
I mean, maybe they're expecting another Boston Herald article. I know the one about Kaufman they got their, I think it was about Kaufman a couple months back. They were bragging about it.
Oh yeah,
how much attention it got. Maybe this will get them a lot of attention. Yeah,
they don't realize that all attention isn't good attention. Like they think that
Right. They don't. They literally don't.
They failed marketing 101, whatever, which is impossible to fail, but they failed marketing 101.
Yep. As long as their tweets are getting views, likes, that's all they care about, and apparently that's all there is to live for, or something.
I mean, a big part of that is probably the whole kind of like grifter culture going on, where it's just like, give me attention. I have a podcast. I want to make money. Hello, Jeff Smith. But I do think I wouldn't be surprised if that plays into it, because it's just the people who get attention end up getting advertised, or they lose advertisers too, like Lew Rockwell did. But they get their alt-right fan base, and for some reason the alt-righters give them money, and then they end up at Disney World, and it's just a whole different thing.
All right. Do we have anything else for today?
I want to add the disclaimer that I have no problem with Josh taking his family to Disney World, and I'm happy his kids were able to experience that. And I have nothing against Josh's kids, because he likes to accuse me of attacking his family all the time, even though I congratulated him when he won custody of his daughter, and I congratulated him on his engagement privately when that happens. Just so I don't play into Josh's little victim fantasy here, I'm glad that the kids were able to experience Disney World.
Oh. Well, I'd have to kill more grandmothers before I can do a successful cruise there turnout.
For anyone who doesn't know about what Jeremy's quoting there, it was some weird thing from Tom Woods. Like, people were making fun of him, and he runs like a cruise called like the Contra Cruise or something like that. I think it might have been with Adam Bates when he was arguing or whatever. And yeah. Tom said, like, you would slit your grandmother's throat to run a successful cruise. It's like, wow.
Yeah,
how many islands does the cruise visit?
Yeah, way to invite two people who would slit their own grandmother's throats if they could host a profitable cruise.
Because what I really want in life is to be Tom Woods, you know?
Just visit islands all day long, every day.
And have a
disproportionately
small face for like your head.
If I wanted to appeal to the Tom Woods people, I would not be attacking Tom Woods in the Mises Caucus. Like, I'm sorry, but I care more about actually like what I think is right than like going on Tom's cruise. Tom Cruise, get it?
Tom Cruise.
But
that was
all right. Do we have anything else we want to touch on here?
No, I think I'm good for the day, and yeah, hopefully we can start doing these a little bit more regularly and not wait.
Yeah, we'll get back into this. It's just been a busy couple months for us. Like, I wasn't even here for the last podcast, so I was hearing things about it, and I was like, I don't know. I watched a little bit, but I haven't gotten to it because I've just been busy. But we'll get back into the swing of things. We're not gone yet. We're back.
Oh, one last thing before we go. Oogle is still posting just random stuff, and I'm just putting it up because it's a good break.
I saw Ogle made a post today about how he's like recruiting not Tom Woods, but Tiger Woods. So there might be another Woods in the Libertarian Party very soon. Probably not, but there might.
Sir Tiger Woods, I believe it said.
Or maybe it was Tiger Woods' girlfriend. I think
he made this one earlier. This one I was just like, Ogle, I see why you've been making your recent post now. I see where it's coming from.
I'll read this to anyone who's listening to this on audio. Mr. Ogle said, I hear from people that the Fakertarians are the ones bringing division and smack. I won't name the person, but they did file for U.S. president as a libertarian in 2020. I wonder who that is.
I think he's talking about Joe Jorgensen, definitely.
Yes.
Totally Joe Jorgensen.
It's Joe. I know
we solved it.
She disappeared just to tell everyone that we were talking.
It's got to be Vermin.
She's hanging out. She's hanging out with Ogle all day long. That's where she's been.
That's why we can never find her. It's like we don't even know where Ogle is half of the time. It's like a random Denny's with Wi-Fi.
And seagulls. Don't forget the seagulls.
Best episode. All right, but do we have anything else we want to say about Mr. Rockwell's Christmas wishes for us all, or do we want to wrap up?
Lew Rockwell is scared of black people.
Lew Rockwell needs to be in a nursing home.
I mean,
That's fair.
yeah, I feel Lew Rockwell's scared of his own shadow at this point because it's darker than he is.
Yeah, that he is. It's like,
That's good.
whoa.
Okay, we'll end on that. Lew Rockwell is scared of his own shadow because it's black. That's our message for today. And
Yes.
so everyone, have a Merry Christmas. Because Christmas is on a Saturday, so I don't know when we're going to do our next podcast, but we'll figure it out. But if we don't see you before then, have a Merry Christmas from Lew Rockwell, and we'll see you again in however many weeks it takes.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Buy shirt, get money. No, other way. We get money. You send money, we get shirt.